boys and girls, it's Mrs. J. Thanks for joining me again. So for this video, you're going to need two practice worksheets. You're going to need the practice worksheet for 4.7 and the one for 4.8, and they both have to deal with time. So hopefully if you saw both of these worksheets, you could see that they have clocks on them. And so we're going to practice and go over our answers for telling time. So I'm going to start with 4.7. And this is our answer key for today. So check your answers. Hopefully you had great success with this. So number one, our clock on that our time on that clock is 8:30. Now, there's a space up here for the time, and then there's a space down here on a line, because this is worth two answers. Because if you read the directions carefully, it says write the time on the digital clock. That's this clock. That's a digital clock. The clock with the hands is called an analog clock. Then they want you to write how to say the time. So you have to have an answer down here in word form. So we've got to have the time here in numbers for the digital clock, and then you have to have an answer here for word form. So if I look at this time, that clock is 8:30. So that's what it would look like on a digital clock. And then if I were to write that in word form, I could say 8:30. That's how I would pronounce or write or say that time. Okay, my next time is 4:15, and I would say that simply as 4:15. Okay, 4:15. My next time is 10 o'clock. And this is kind of fun. I always like this. So you write 10 and then you write O with an apostrophe, and you can write the word clock. Our last time for number 4 is 1:45. 1:45. All right, so there's the answers for numbers 1 through 4. Digital time on the clock and the written word form for the time on the clock. Now for number 5, the directions say, draw the hands on the analog clock, write the time on the digital clock. So we have to look at the word form now. This says 39 minutes after 2. 39 minutes after 2. Okay, so if it's after 2:30, I'm going to make my hour hand. Remember, the hour hand is our shorter hand in between the 2 and the 3. And my 39 minutes, I'm going to use a pencil to help me. My 39 minutes would be right here before the 8, because if I was to count around 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 40 minutes would be on the 8. So I need 1 minute before. So you have to kind of do the best you can to get that out to the 39 minutes. And then we would have the time of 2:39. So that's what the answer for number 5 would look like. Okay. On number 6, we would have 6:15. So I'm going to do my hour hand down towards the 6. Remember, that's the shorter hand. And 15, 5, 10, 15, that would be out right to the 3. So you can make your longer hand like that. And then my time would be 6:15. All right, 11:45. That's a tricky one. 11:45 means that it's 15 minutes before 11 o'clock. So it's almost 11 o'clock, but not quite. It's actually 10:45. 11:45 is 15 minutes before 11 o'clock, because we divide our clock into 4 sections. So this is the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter, and so halfway, okay, would be like the 30-minute mark, the half-hour mark, the 45-minute, okay, but we would have a quarter left. So time gets a little tricky, because you can either tell time after the hour or before the hour. So 11:45 would be 10:45, and since it's almost 11 but not quite, I'm going to make my hour hand closer to the 11, but not quite on the 11, but almost. And my minute hand is going to go out to the 9, because 9 times 5 is 45, so that's where 45 minutes would go. Okay, so 10:45. All right, so again, number 8, write the time on the digital clock, then write how to say the time. So this is pretty much exactly what we did at the top, but it looks like this is the time to the minute, so we have to be very exact about what we write. So I'm looking at number 8, and it looks to me like, so 2 would be 10 minutes, so that would be 8:10. It's 1 minute before, so this looks like 8:09. 8:09, so it would be 9 minutes after 8. You could have also written out 9 and then done like an O and an 8 if you wanted to do it that way, but this is the way I did it. I'm most concerned about making sure that you had the correct time. So if you had the correct time, this is what I really want you to make sure that you have, okay? Because it's not really very often that we write time in word form. So it's more important to me that you can read the clock accurately and write the time precisely. So I'm looking at the clock here. So it's almost 4 o'clock, but it's not 4 o'clock yet. So my hour can't be 4 o'clock. My hour has to be 3 o'clock, but it's a certain number of minutes after 3 o'clock. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, and it looks like 2 more minutes. So 3, oops. I made that as a 3. I meant to say 5, 2 for 3:52. 3:52. 3:52. 3:52. And on my last clock, number 10, okay, so it's past the 11 o'clock hour, all right, so that's easy. We can write 11, and it looks like it's exactly right on the 5, so that's an easy one. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. 11:25. 11:25. There you go. All right, my friends, so there is the answers for the first worksheet, 4.7 practice. I'm going to pull out my worksheet for 4.8. I had it on the floor. I always have to seem to pick everything up off the floor. So you should have this worksheet. Now, this worksheet is a little bit more challenging because what they want you to do is they want you to tell the time as minutes after the hour and minutes before an hour. All right, because there's actually, so this is actually minutes after 12, but there's also a certain number of minutes before the next hour, which would be 1 o'clock. So let's see how you do with this. This was a little bit more challenging. I would definitely be more concerned that you would be able to tell the first time. Like, I want you to be able to look at this clock and tell me that it's 12:17. That's what would be most important to me, is that you could look at the clock and you could be precise and you could read it accurately and tell me the time to the minute. So this is what I would be most curious and wanting you to know to be able to how to do. Okay, so tell me the exact time. If I was to write it, I would say 17 minutes after 12. Or if I was to count the minutes before 1 o'clock, I would count backwards. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 1, 2, 3. It's 43 minutes before 1. All right, so every answer on these 2 lines is going to have the word after, and then it's going to have the word before. But remember, I want to make sure that you can tell time to the minute. So if you know that you got the right answer for every clock to the time to the right minute, but you didn't get what's on the lines, that's okay. All right, I'm more worried that you can tell time than to be able to put it in this after and before stuff. Okay, so for number 2, if I was to look at this clock, so it's almost 5 o'clock, but it's not quite, so I know my hour has to be 4 something. Now, if I count the minutes, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, and then it looks like it goes 2 minutes past. So it looks like the exact time is 4:52. 4:52. So I would write 52 minutes after 4. And then before, it's going to be 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 minutes before 5. Okay, but I hope you got 4:52. Number 3, my exact time on this clock would be 8, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. 8:25. That's a nice, easy one right there. Not to the exact minute. It's on a nice 5 around the clock. So I have 25 minutes after 8. And I would have 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35 minutes before 9. Okay, so it's 35 more minutes until 9 o'clock. So if you looked at the clock and it was 8:25 and your mom said to you, hey, so-and-so, you have until 9 o'clock to read your book and then you have to go to bed, you would know 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. You had 35 more minutes that you could read your book. Okay? All right, number 4. Let's take a look at this. So it's past 10:30, but it's not quite 11 o'clock yet. So it's going to be 10 something. It's not quite to the 7, so it's not quite 35. It looks like it's 1 minute before. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. 1, 2, 3, 4. 10:34 is the correct time for that clock. And you would say for this one, 34 minutes after 10. And then if we were to count the minutes before 11, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, and we would have 1 extra minute right here, 26 minutes before 11. Okay, so if you could stay up until 11 o'clock, wow, maybe it's a weeknight and you're having a sleepover, you'd have 26 more minutes until you had to go to bed. Okay, so sometimes being able to tell the amount of minutes before an hour is really good, especially if you're watching the clock and you've got to be somewhere or do something at a certain hour, but it's not quite yet that hour. Sometimes it's a really good thing to know how much time you have left until you have to do what you have to do. Okay, so if I look at number 5, this is an easy one too. So I'm going to look at the hour. It's 5 o'clock. And then I'm right on the 1, so that's exactly 5 minutes. All right, and don't forget, you have to put a 0 in there. Okay, so if we read that on a digital clock, it would be 5:05. So it's 5 minutes after 5. Now it's going to be a lot of minutes till before 6 o'clock. It's going to be almost an hour. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55. Okay, 55 minutes before 6. All right, we've got 4 left. Here we go. Number 6. All right, so it's between an hour. It's not quite 10 o'clock, so it's 9 o'clock. And straight down to the 6 is halfway. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. My correct time is 9:30. Oops, I forgot to give that one a star if you had that as the right time. So I would say 30 minutes after 9. And then that means it's 30 minutes before 10. Minutes before 10. Okay? All right, our last row. We're in the home stretch here. Let's see how we do. So the hour is between 2 and 3. It's not quite 2 o'clock yet, so my hour has to be 2 o'clock plus some extra minutes. So I'm past the 8, which is 40. So let's count by our 5s. Okay? 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. That to me looks like 42. 42. So 2:42, that's what I'm going to say. 42 minutes after 42. All right, so we have 42 minutes. So our time, I'm going to say it went right to there. Then we have 5, 10, 15, 16, 17, 18. 18 minutes before 3. Okay, it's almost 3 o'clock, but not quite. Okay. Gotta give that one a little star. All right, number 8. So I have 11 o'clock. That's pretty easy. Now I'm going to count my time. 5, 10. It looks like it goes 2 minutes after. So I'm going to say it's 11, 12. It's kind of a fun time. So it's 12 minutes after 11. Or 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 46, 47, 48 minutes before 12. Oh, and our last one, our last clock. So it's almost 7 o'clock, but it's not quite 7 o'clock yet. So it's 6 something, 6 and a lot of minutes. I think it's 1 minute before. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, but it's not quite to the 50. It's 1 minute less, so I'm going to say it's 6:49. 6:49. And if I were to write that in word form, I would have 49 minutes after 6. And if I were to count the minutes until 7 o'clock, I would have 5, 10, plus 1 more would be 11 minutes before 7. Whew, that's a lot of befores and afters. My goodness. But the thing that I want you to make sure is that if you got the time for the clock correct, if you can tell time to the minute, that is the expectation for a 3rd grader, that you can accurately read an analog clock and give a digital time. Okay, I know a lot of you in our classroom rely on the clock on the smartboard, even though there's a clock on the wall. And hopefully you have at least one analog clock somewhere in your house that will help you practice this. So if you found that this was a little hard for you, maybe do a little bit more practicing with time and make sure that you can read time to the minute.